Craze with your host Yasmina Ramsey, where we explore how world dance expresses the inexpressible and helps us to understand the meaning of our existence. From his early years in the Alvin Ailey Repertory Ensemble to principal dancer with Les Ballets Jazz de Montréal, George Randolph then turned his attention to producing such smash hits as T.O Hot Shoe Show and more recently the CSA award-winning documentary Unsung, Behind the Glee. His biggest and most profound contribution to Canada's performing arts scene was through creating his triple threat training method in 1992. To this day, the educational programs that the Randolph College for the Performing Arts offers are unrivaled, creating jobs for teachers and thousands of students who've gone on to become actors, directors, producers, recording artists, and choreographers, sharing George's legacy worldwide. Although I have never attended his school, he was an unknowing mentor and inspiration to me as well. So, hi, George. I think it's been something like 25 years since I last saw you in person. How have you been?
First of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. I mean, it was quite touching. I've been well, still here.
I hear you. Well, I'm honored to have you here. And that encounter with you 25 years ago, my studio, I had just moved in, and you had your studio across the street on Gloucester and Yonge. You had a TV thing or a movie being filmed in your studio, so you needed more studio space. You were going to rent from me.
Right.
And so you came over to my studio to check out how big it was and things like that. And on the wall was all pictures of past students in costumes, belly dance costumes, etc. And you kind of looked at the wall up and down all over, and then you looked at me and looked back at the wall, and then you said, it's really hard to make it in the arts. And of all the arts, the hardest is dance. And you had to pick belly dancing. You're one brave girl.
Well, obviously you're good at what you do.
I'm still around, too.
Indeed.
But I have told that story so many times in the last 25 years all over the world to students when telling them, don't be discouraged, keep it up. And I tell them this very famous dancer who made it, was really big in Canada. He told me this, and so we should be proud of ourselves that we're strong enough to still survive.
There you go, knock on wood.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I was thinking that if that encounter with you, and because I've been stalking you lately on Facebook because I'm about to interview you, so I've been checking that. And a lot of your posts are about your children. Your son especially, just like last week, really big thing happened, and your daughter's doing amazing things. And I was thinking that maybe my sense of you is this nurturing type of person. Would you say that, or is that just something that
I would like to say that one of the reasons I got involved in teaching was for people to discover who they really are through the arts. Many people can teach someone to sing, dance, and act, which is great, and people do it well. But our takeaway is that what we give our students are life skills. So in any walk of life that they decide to enter, they'll be able to pull from what they've learned. To see someone come in shy and always be in the back of the class, and then all of a sudden they're in front of the class. Parents would thank me for bringing their child out of or not me, but the program out of their shell into this area and space of confidence and better self-esteem, and learning how to work and share in the creative process, and to get a better understanding of the world and cultures around them.
So is that the reason why you went from being a performer and on stage and in the spotlight to opening a school?
Oh, the opening a school was totally by accident.
Really?
Yeah. I thought I was going to be this big-time choreographer, producer of shows around the world and all that kind of thing. And it dawned on me that I really should develop a skill that would allow me to do those kind of things. And so I felt teaching for me was the avenue to go that would support me to do these other endeavors. But when I first came here to Toronto, after I finished with Les Ballets Jazz de Montréal, teaching for their school here, unfortunately they went under. And I took it over, and that's how I got involved in the dance studio business.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's how that worked out. And I had a partner at the time, business partner at the time, Mara O'Connor. And we changed the name from Les Ballets Jazz, the Dance Center, to Studio Dance Theatre. And that was located on Adelaide and Jarvis Street.
Wow.
Rodney's Oyster Bar
Yeah.
was a tenant in the basement.
I know what that is.
And
what year was that?
That was in 85.
So when did you move into Gloucester and Yonge? Because it was before me. I think you were already well established there before I got there.
Oh, it was a journey. Because after Adelaide and Jarvis, I had moved to Richmond and Duncan. After Richmond and Duncan, there was Gloucester and Yonge. So that had to be around 95.
Oh, so we were around the same time.
Yeah.
You had big, beautiful studios, and I had this dumb makeshift. But I mean, we had a lot of space. But when you decided to establish the Randolph Academy or the Randolph College for Performing Arts,
it's been through some names.
Yeah.
So, okay, what had happened at Studio Dance Theatre? Let me give you a quick history. My partner at the time, Mara O'Connor, decided that she wanted out of the situation, so I bought her out and I became the owner of Studio Dance Theatre. And then I took on another business partner, and unfortunately, he emptied the school's account, took all the money, and left town, that type of thing.
Why does that happen so much in the arts?
I know. You know, I wish I had invested time in business courses, to tell you the truth. So anyway, our daughter was only a month old, and we had absolutely no money. It was my students. We didn't have a children's program at the time. It was strictly all adults. And the adults, these professional men and women, some of them pulled together funds, and they paid for my rent in my apartment and bought groceries.
Oh, that's so sweet.
For about 4 months to get me back on my feet.
Yeah.
And then one of my students, Kathy Baker, her husband at the time worked for a law firm called Weir and Foles. We had changed the name from Studio Dance Theatre to Randolph Dance Theatre. Right. Because I was looking for another location because I couldn't stand going to that space anymore. Yeah. You know, when you have everything, you know, posters taken off the wall, just everything, all your personal possessions gone. And I was walking down the street on Richmond and Duncan with a buddy of mine. I said, that's the place I would like to move the studio to. And he said, George, what are you talking about, man? You got absolutely no cash. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I said, I'm going to go and check out the property manager and make this pitch. And the pitch was, I told him who I was. He said, yeah, I read about you in the paper. You know, sorry about what happened to you, that type of thing. I said, I would like to move my school here. I would like to occupy the top 2 floors. I have absolutely no money to renovate the space. I would like for you to build the space and amortize it over a 5-year lease with another option, another 5. I showed him my canceled checks of the rent that I paid on Adelaide and Jarvis. I said, I do have a following, and this is the kind of money that I can pay you every month. Mm-hmm. And with on that, we did a handshake, and he did the deal. That's how I got back on my feet.
It was a different time, though. Like, I'm not sure that would happen now.
Oh, I know. Yeah, truly. And then we outgrew that space, and Gloucester came up, and we decided to move move over there. But so it was called Randolph Dance Theatre. Then in the early 90s, 92, we changed it to Randolph School of the Arts. Okay? We changed it because they started bringing musicals into the country. You know, Cats was the first one, then, you know, Kiss of the Spider Woman. So they had this huge audition for Kiss of the Spider Woman at the studio, and everybody came out. You know, there's a lot of hype involved because Cheetah Rivera was the star. Brent Carver, the late, great Brent Carver, was the up-and-coming Canadian actor. And Vincent Patterson was the choreographer, and he just got finished doing all of Madonna's earlier videos. So everybody was at the audition, place was packed. The producers put them through their paces for like 6 hours. And then at the end of the day, he said, there's no talent in this room. I have to go to New York and get my talent. I said, what are you talking about, man? There's talent in this room. He said, you're right. You have singers over there, dancers over there, actors over here. For the type of performer I'm looking for a versatile performer for the type of musicals I want to bring into the country. They have that training in New York, but not in Canada. So I said, okay, how about this? Would you consider to be part of an advisory board to help develop an industry-driven curriculum for producers like yourself? And he says, that's interesting. So he sent his VP at the time to be part of this. And then I went over to the Mirvish organization. They sent their rep. And then I was fortunate enough to get a grant from the Ministry of Human Resources to have a feasibility study done by KPMG to see if this idea of triple threat training had any merit. Mm-hmm. And long story short, they said, there's many wonderful, great universities and colleges in Canada for the arts, but you major in one area, minor in another. No one's doing equal training in all three. So you're at the right place at the right time.
But in other countries, they had colleges like that had training in all three at the same time? Like in U.S., they already had that?
Well, the concept is not it's not new. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had this concept back in the MGM days, back in the 40s. Right? That was the system that Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland went through.
Right.
You know, so...
just Canada didn't have it.
Right. I'm sure there were other, like there's I believe a school in Australia that has an excellent one. I think London has an excellent one, and also Germany. But as far as Canada, it was talked about. I mean, you would have dance incorporated in the musical theater programs, but not as far as equal training.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I didn't consider myself a musical theater program. You know, we, at the time, in 92, we had trademarked the name Triple Threat. We owned the name Triple Threat as far as pertaining to training goes in the arts. Our philosophy was just to make people more employable.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line for our way of thinking. You know, because there's no such thing as just a dancer, just a singer, just an actor. If you want to make a life out of this, mm-hmm. you have to be excellent in one area at least, and potential in the other two for sure.
But you yourself, once you become involved in that triple threat world, did your love of dance change and you start to migrate towards theater or singing, or it stayed always strong with dance?
You know, be it singing, dancing, acting, it all comes from the same place. It's about how you can tell the story. Mm. It's about intentions behind your movement. What do you want from that person? What tactics are you going to use to get them on your side? You know, so I think that it just opened up a whole new world for me. And plus, I realized that the importance of it, because when I was in New York, after I did my stint with Alvin Ailey Repertory Ensemble, and I was trying out for Broadway, like I would audition for Bob Fosse's Dancing with Gwen Verdon as the choreographer. And the dance didn't really pose a problem, but the vocal, the singing, I realized that I wasn't a natural. I realized that as well when I auditioned for the original TV movie Fame. There, I was too old to be a student and not old enough to be a teacher. So, but again, it was about the vocal training. I said, well, to be, So I think that was the impetus of also for me to develop a program that was much more well-rounded. Yeah.
And you started off wanting to be a choreographer and produce dance around the world, and then you end up with a triple threat college. Do you like the way things turned out? Or do you wonder about if you'd gone the other direction? Like, since you say it was an accident that you sort of fell into?
I believe in the universe. It's predetermined. This is your life. And you roll with it. You make mistakes. You learn from it, and you pick yourself up. Continue on. How I first I got into dance late. I didn't study as a child. I got into my second year university.
Wow.
I was at Hampton University. I was a military cadet. I was a sergeant. I had my own squad.
Wow.
And I also was a tennis player. My degree is in psychology.
Okay, wait a minute. We have military, tennis, and psychology.
Right. I come from a military
And then
family.
you end up dancing in the Alvin Ailey Company and then opening a school for triple threat in Canada. Oh, that's a wild ride.
Yeah. I got involved in dance to help my tennis game, actually.
Wow.
As far as spatial awareness, agility, flexibility, that type of thing. And then I just fell in love with movement. Growing up, I really wasn't allowed to express myself. I couldn't play really any instruments, I dabbled a little bit into abstract reasoning and drawings and things like that. But it was movement that really fulfilled me as the emotional and spiritual connection that made me say to my parents, I'm leaving the military program. I said I will stay in school to finish my degree in psychology. However, upon graduation, I'm going to go to New York. I saw this company called the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theatre. That's the company I want to be in one day. And they thought I lost my mind.
I was just going to ask, how did they feel about that?
Didn't go over too well.
You're supposed to be a tennis-playing psychologist?
And so they said, fine. Well, check this out. You're cut off from us. And when you come back to your senses and you want to go to grad school, let us know. But you're on your own with that.
Wow.
And so I went to New York after graduation, because back home in Red Bank, New Jersey, I was also the resident tennis pro, and I will also clean we had clay courts, and so that was my job, and I would do that 6 a.m, and then be done with the teaching of the lessons at 9, come back home and shower, then take the bus to Manhattan, that type of thing. And the first time I went to Manhattan, to go to the old studio, not the fancy one that they have now. The studio was on 229 East 59th Street in Lexington Avenue in an old church.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Cool.
An old church. And so I went there. A friend of mine that introduced me to dance, Dr. Carol Penn, we grew up together, and she took me to the audition. And the first cut in the audition, I didn't know what was going on. The first cut in the audition was you had to walk across the studio and sign in at this table. And they were cutting people as they were walking. They wanted to see if you walked with confidence, where was the focus of your eyes, or you're looking all over the place, or you're looking on the ground, or you have that, do you have a direct focus? And I had a direct focus. And they said, okay, you're kind of old auditioning for a scholarship program, but are you willing to do this, Mr. College graduate? Clean our studios, our washrooms and our change rooms in exchange for classes. And I said, yes, I'll do that. So that was my thing. I started off as a scholarship student, and then got promoted to be the receptionist at the front desk. And then things began to pick up. We OD'd on classes as far as contemporary. You took a Horton technique, you took the Graham technique, you had your jazz class, you have your ballet class, you have your African class, and for some reason, my rate of retaining was pretty good, and so they took me off the front desk and said, okay, let's give this guy a full scholarship so he can focus in on the training. Mm-hmm. And my mentor was this gentleman, I think he's still there, Milton Myers. I used to see him teach class. I said, that is what I want to be able to do. Just the way he counted, the rhythm. It wasn't like 5, 6, 7, 8. It was like 5 and 6 and 7. Now you go, you know. You know? And all the classes had 3 musicians. You hear me? There was no recorded music. Every class had a pianist, a drummer, and somebody on a horn, or the pianist may play a horn as well. In class. So you were feeling the beat, and they would move with you. Oh, it was an extraordinary experience as far as the learning goes. And the reason why you get from point A to point B. Because Ailey had that theatrical background as well about telling a story through movement. So then they came out with the first apprentice company, Ailey 3, the Alvin Ailey American Dance Center Workshop. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the original company for Ailey 3. And so there you would take your class and then you would learn repertoire. My thing was I was a good partner. I was a pas de deux man, really. And if you can be a good pas de deux person, I believe at the time you can last longer in a company because it's a specialized technique to do as well. I wasn't flexible, I wasn't Gumby or anything like that, and I didn't have extraordinary technique, but I could move well, had presence, and my timing with partnering was one of my strengths. Then I got invited into the national company called Ailey 2, the Alvin Ailey Repertory Ensemble, which was wonderful, and danced with the Pearl Primus African Dance Company, and had the opportunity to perform at City Center, Lincoln Center, and Carnegie Hall. And then when I found out that I wasn't going to be asked to be in the first company, that's when I start looking around at other things. Okay, what am I going to do? Like living in New York is tough, as a dancer. But I was willing to sacrifice training at the Ailey School. But it would be hard for me to go to another company that didn't have that standard or recognition. Yeah. So that's why I was looking at Broadway for a bit, then realizing that what I really want to do is dance. I gotta find a company that can appreciate what I have to offer. And then my ballet teacher at the time, Robert Christopher, he was from American Ballet Theatre, and he told me about this new company in Canada, in Montreal, called Les Ballets Jazz de Montréal. He says it's a small repertoire company. They travel around the world, 7 months out of the year. They have a very good mixed program as far as choreographic works, and I think that may work for you. So I saw the audition being advertised in the trade paper. We didn't have internet back in those days yet. So you had to look at, every week you check out the Backstage newspaper to see what auditions were happening, right? And so I saw that they were auditioning in Montreal. So I flew up to Montreal to take the audition, and they hired me right away. I was shocked, and I flew back, got my bags, and in 2 days I was in Montreal in rehearsals.
How long did you live in Montreal?
I was with the company for 2 years, and it was, and we toured around the world, and we were treated like rock stars. I mean, it was in the early '80s in dance. It was the ticket. Yeah. I mean, you can go to any clubs or restaurants or whatever, And I was fortunate enough to get some good press. But then when we were in France, I fell in love with France. And then at the same time, I was establishing myself as a teacher. Because when I went on tour, I would also, if there's a town that we visited that I liked, I would go and teach a free class. And I said, look, if you like what I have to offer, I'm putting together my own teaching tour when our season ends. Because the season really was like a seven-month gig. But you got 5 more months to get some income, right?
Right.
So I did my own teaching tour, that type of thing. And I was fortunate enough to get a contract to teach at the Rosella Hightower Academy de Danse in Cannes, France, which was a very prestigious academy, and dancers all over the world came. And I didn't renew my contract with Les Ballet Jazz because I accepted a contract to be a guest soloist at the Lido in Paris. And that was a very decadent part of my life. And then I got the call from Les Ballet Jazz in Montreal saying, look, we got a school in Toronto. It needs a boost or something. We understand that you're a popular teacher, whatever. Can you come over here and guest teach for us? And that's what brought me back into the country, into Toronto. And that's when unfortunately, they went under in Toronto, and I took it over and got involved in the business. Yeah.
Okay, let me come back to the...
Yeah. Now, as far as the college goes, and so in '92 it was Randolph School of the Arts, then became Randolph Academy for the Performing Arts, and then finally the Ministry of Universities, well, they have another name for it now, gave us permission to use the word college in our title. And in 2017, we became Randolph College for the Performing Arts. And we have relationships with 2 British universities, one in the Royal Conservatory in Glasgow, Scotland, and the one in the University of Surrey in London, England. And they have a master's degree program. And they would do their world tour looking for students for their master's program, and they came across our program. They asked if they could audit our classes because they were intrigued about the singing, dancing, and acting thing. I said, sure, of course. And they said, my goodness, your program is doing much more in your conservatory approach than really any university as far as student-teacher in a classroom situation. We like how everything is integrated. We would like for your students to audition for our program, and if they pass the audition, we'll fast-track them from your diploma program without a BA into our master's degree. And to date, we have about 30 students with their masters, and I'm quite pleased. And the cool thing about that also is upon graduation, they get a couple of years of work visas so they can stay in the country, to do the West End, say, like in London, that type of thing. So we've always been about creating opportunity. That's all. Just got to make it happen. You got to be your own CEO. You can't wait for things to come to you. You do not. You got to take charge.
So that's what you inspire people with.
And now we have a relationship here in Canada with Sir Wilfrid Laurier University, where our students can do 2 years at Randolph and 2 years at Sir Wilfrid Laurier and get their BA in community musical theater. And the Sir Wilfrid Laurier students, which is the reason why they want the association, their music program is opera-based. They didn't have a musical theater program, so rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, they liked what we're doing and accepted our program to be their musical theater program. So that's how the pathway agreement relationship started.
Well, that's a lot of opening doors. This quote, I heard Brene Brown say it, and then I went and looked it up once. And every now and then when I'm feeling like I've been batted around a bit, I go and read it. And it's President Truman's famous quote, you know, the man in the arena. Do you know the quote?
I'm not familiar with the quote,
No?
but I can
okay.
understand the symbolism that he's using there.
It's about critics and things like, unless you're in the arena getting bashed around, I don't care what you have to say, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And like everything you've said so far is wonderful, and I can see that like you're driven and all those kinds of things. But I know because not on a similar path, but I'm still here, and
Exactly.
it's not. There's battles you have to, whatever it is in politics or whatever it is that you have to. Or was it all smooth sailing?
Excuse me? Smooth. That's not exactly the phrase I would use. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah.
No, you got to ride the waves. That's for sure.
So it's probably better if I had the quote, but I was going to say, do you feel like that? Be the man in the arena, you know, and then I'll listen to you, kind of thing.
Right. Wear my shoes, because being a studio owner is tough.
Yeah.
Many people don't realize the overhead that is required. Right.
Yeah. They think you're like rolling in it and
Oh.
going in.
Oh my goodness.
And you're
Things we had to
you're
do.
working really 18-hour days, 7 days a week, and can barely pay your rent.
Things we had to do to keep those doors open.
Yeah.
Even the first studio on Adelaide and Jarvis, oh my goodness. On the weekends, at night, I used to turn it into an after-hours club. And then in the mornings, you have, people from the National Ballet doing the ballet class at 10 o'clock, 11:30, da-da-da-da-da. And I remember an officer coming by at night and said, "Mr. Randolph, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just trying to find ways to pay the rent, sir." He said, "Look, my daughter takes your class on weekends, and I'm telling you, this is not the route to go. This is not the route to go, because you're going to attract some undesirable people at an after-hours club." I took his advice. He said, "Find another way." So I said, yes, sir. Thank you for the talking. My goodness.
That's a good story.
But but constantly, even to this day, I mean, it's just tough out there. Always hustling, trying to get loans, borrowing from here, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
When you were telling the story earlier, and you kind of said you listen to the universe and you feel like there's a fate or a written story for everybody, sort of thing. So
absolutely.
Does spirituality play a role in your life or in your art?
Oh, definitely. Well, what attracted me to dance was the whole spirituality of the Ailey message and the roots where it came from. It came from the church in the Deep South originally, as far as his signature piece, Revelations, right? Still to this day brings encores. Sometimes I would beat myself up. You have your payroll due on Friday, and it's Monday. You're trying to figure out, how am I going to get all this cash to meet payroll? And you do what you have to do, and then you leave it to the universe, and then boom, it happens. And many people, I told my mother, I said, many people say that I have a horseshoe up my ass. And she looked at me stern and said, "Son, you don't have a horseshoe up your ass. You got God on your side." I come from an extremely religious family. My mother was into theology. Both my grandfathers were preachers. And now my daughter, she's an ordained minister.
Wow.
As well as being this yoga teacher and mindful meditation. Yeah, it's been is being carried on. And I feel like with both our children, the torch is being passed on as far as appreciation for the different type of art and how it connects with you in a humanistic way. Because I always say that arts is a business, yes, but it's also a human necessity.
Well, your son is an artist. Tell us about that.
My son Curtiss, he's quite the young Renaissance guy. He went to Ryerson and majored in photography. He was fortunate enough to be selected as one of the recipients of this national award, and they showcased his series, his work at the AGO, and now they're taking his exhibit to the National Gallery of Canada in Ottawa. I went online to see what the gallery was about, and I see that they're having a Rembrandt exhibit. and the same guys that carried the Rembrandt painting to the gallery were the same guys that the gallery sent from Ottawa to my place here in T.O. to pick up his work that was hanging on my wall.
Wow. Yeah.
And he's so nonchalant about it. He said, yeah, some guys are coming to pick up. Some guys are coming. What are you talking about, son? You know? Yeah, we've been very, very blessed with two wonderful, gifted children. And they make my life worth living.
That was my next question. What's the most important thing in your life for you? Was your children? Seeing my children grow into their own being. As parents, my ex and I, we believed in providing the children with opportunities and a foundation. But all you can do after that is let them fly and hope for the best. They'll go through a couple of bumps to figure things out, to find out who they are, and then you hope that they'll get pulled back in on track. And so far, we've been very, very fortunate to see their growth. It's amazing.
So you're writing a book, right?
Yes,
what's happening with that?
Yes, this is my big project that I'm working on. That I'm very excited about. I'm writing a book about my life. The end goal is to turn it into a Netflix doc. Yeah, there's a publisher interested in my story, so we'll see how it rolls out.
So have you already written it, or you're?
No, I'm in the process. My goddaughter is actually writing it. It's almost like conversations, with George.
Yeah.
And right now the title is called I Am George. Because when I was running the school, in orientation day and meet the parents, they would come into my office wanting to meet George Randolph. And I said, I am George. And they were like shocked, and they said, please excuse me. I'm sorry. I said, everything okay? He said, I just thought Randolph was an old white guy. So sorry to disappoint you there. So anyway, it's an interesting process. Oh my God, it's like talk about therapy in session. Learning more about myself as I go through, and kind of surprised about some things that I've done. But the most interesting is going through, talking to people at different parts of walks of my life, and hearing their stories that I totally forgot about. What makes it even more interesting. It's a lot to unpack. I'm sure it'll go through more rewrites, but I'm enjoying the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
COVID. How'd you do with the whole last year and a half?
COVID. The takeaway from COVID was realizing what's really important in your life and how much stuff you don't need. I was looking at my closet. I said, I think I'm going to make some people happy. I don't need all these clothes. It's you realize the importance of family, the things that we take for granted, as far as touch goes, hugs, non-existent. My heart goes out to the families that had little kids and had to homeschool them and then do their job, whatever their profession was, jockeying for positions of who has the computer, what floor are you going to be on, or what room. But for me, it brought me closer to my family.
Mm-hmm. Was it a kind of a downtime? Like everything sort of stopped for you? Or you recalibrated?
Well, the college continued. I mean, we went online right away. We didn't miss a beat.
Wow.
Thanks to this woman and grad, Erin Brooke, that, from what I hear, really took charge and put everything online and is still doing an amazing job. As far as me personally, it was more about writing that book and thinking about my health, paying more attention to that.
So are you healthier now after COVID?
I'm getting better. I'm getting better. No, when I say that I'm getting better, what that means is that I'm a type 2 diabetic, and so I'm realizing now how you really have to pay attention to this issue instead of having it control your life.
Right. Yeah.
So I have to take charge. I take charge again, and it's about and really, my goodness, it's about what you eat. Bottom line, it's so true.
Well, and keep moving.
And keep moving. Yeah, I got to work on that part.
Yeah.
Keep moving. So if I can get those two things together, I'll be okay.
It's hard because when you go a couple of days not moving, it's like to get the motors going again.
I know. I was like, oh, Lord.
Okay, my last question is two-part kind of. Are you content and proud of your career and contribution to the arts? And is there more that you want to do? Or you've done it and you can sit back?
Oh, no. There's no such thing as sitting back on your laurels, It's I could never do that. But I feel that I have the arts gave me a sense of having a purpose, and I'm thankful for that. Will I ever really retire? No. I'll just find another avenue to explore.
You took psychology, is where you were headed. Why psychology?
I wanted to go into movement therapy at Columbia University. So it's like the psychotherapeutic use of movement so people can understand their behavior.
Wow.
So that was the backup plan.
Right.
Yeah. And I find that, being in the arts, using psychology every day, there's no shortage of drama in a drama school.
I'm sure. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I think we've covered a good portion right now. I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity, including me. I mean, we've seen each other in advertisements and pictures and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So seeing you face to face like this is after 25 years. My goodness, my hat is off to you and your accomplishments. I'm telling you, I know the difficulties in surviving in this industry.
That's why it's nice to listen to somebody else's story, both the highs and the lows. Mm-hmm. I think as the kind of people that are still surviving around, it's kind of like we need each other to know that we're not weird. Sometimes I feel so alone.
Right.
That there's a lot of students, there's a lot of dancers, there's a lot of teachers, there's a lot of choreographers, but there's not a lot of people who have been on such turns and ups and downs, but your story certainly sounds like that. And,
yeah, there's a few more.
What made you say that to me in 1995 when you said, and you chose belly dancing? You must be a really brave girl.
No, it's just a specialized art form. To actually do a studio, to focus in on that only.
Well, everybody told me I was crazy, yeah.
It's funny because I was a modern dance teacher, but it wouldn't sell, okay? It wouldn't sell. So I said, wait a minute, I wanted to teach this Horton technique. And I said, nobody wants that. Man, people want modern jazz. The craze, back then you had flash dance, you had the music videos just happening in the mid-'80s and things like that. So what I did was change the structure of my class. I changed the music.
Was that like an ongoing battle for you, though? What the market was demanding and what you wanted to do? It was like you were constantly having to work with those two?
Yeah, you have to. I said, I have to find a way to make people want to take my class. My way was changing up the music and incorporating some of the movements that were happening at the time with the young people in with the contemporary movement. So you created another style.
Yeah.
So it wasn't pure Horton technique at all, but it gave you a strong technique without you even knowing it.
Right.
So that's how I would market the class. But you would you always have to change with what's going on. For instance, I used to have pianists at the school that refused to play pop music for musical theater. That's not musical theater. But all of a sudden, shows with pop music came on.
Right.
Everybody had to learn how to do it. You got to move with it. Now you're dealing with a situation where theater might be limited as far as the attendance goes, and with the whole COVID situation. So, what are you looking at? You're looking at live streaming productions. You see the big guys doing it right now with the movie Hamilton. You see with hip hop artists partnering with game companies. Like this hip hop artist's name is Travis something with Fourth Night. All these kids playing that game. He did a concert, and these kids were buying avatars to be in his concert to follow him around to different things. Wow. It's insane. So you have to be creative. The performing arts has to mix now in definitely with digital arts, media arts. That's where I believe the next wave is turning to.
But when we started talking, you said the real impetus that made you a teacher is you love to see people grow into themselves, define themselves, sort of.
Absolutely.
But that's really kind of like, maybe you have to morph a little bit of Horton technique or morph a little bit, but at the end of the day, you're hoping to steer them to that direction. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Right? So the same tactics that you use in a scene study class, you can apply in a dance class. Again, it's about storytelling. It's about finding the truth behind how you move or what you say. Anybody can learn a step, learn some choreo, or learn lines, or learn the verses of a song, but it's all about how you can put your own life experience into that message to make it more believable. You know what I'm talking about.
Just yesterday I taught a workshop and almost verbatim said that sentence.
Exactly. There's nothing new under the sun. That's the development of an artist.
Yeah, it's glorious. Well, George, thank you very much. I'm very honored. It was a total pleasure, and I was really excited about this podcast. Even nervous, still am.
I'm honored, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Okay.
It's so good to see you, Yasmina.
Thank you for joining me, your host, Yasmina Ramsey, for this week's episode of Deeper Dance. If you would like more information, please check out my website at yasminaramseyarts.com. I hope you join me next week with more fascinating guests and more ideas to ponder inspired by dance.